Marianne Smyth, she came into your life originally as a friend.
Absolutely. Even more sickening than that, when I think about it, she came into my life like every con artist comes into every victim's life with an offer to help. That's how they get in there. And it's only looking back and sifting through the wreckage of what she did to me do I realize that's how that went. Every con artist enters every victim's life. I call it red flag number one in the book. They offer to help because who doesn't love a helper? And when you meet a con artist, and certainly when I met Marianne Smyth for the first time in May of 2013, I was having a problem. And she figured out what that problem was. We had lost our swimming pool in the building we live in, this building in downtown, and I was upset and all the neighbors were upset. This pool is like a gargantuan pool. It's like an oasis in the desert of downtown Los Angeles in the concrete jungle. And it was an amenity that, one of the reasons we moved into this building to begin with. And a lot of residents felt the same way. So we were all up in arms, and con artists have a unique ability when there's a problem, when there's a situation that everyone is fleeing, a con artist like Mayor Smyth is heading towards it because they know if they can have a solution or pretend to have a solution, they'll get a lot of people to like them very quickly. And that's exactly what happened. I liked her very quickly. I loved her very quickly. Over the course of 4 years, she was like a sister to me. We would end phone calls with, I love you, and looking back, that was all part of her plan. And that's how she got my money. That's how she got everyone's money. She got in quick, she got in tight, and she scammed.
Was there anything genuine about her at all? Because to form a close friendship, I mean, was she always completely detached and a complete liar, or is this kind of an appendices to her, to a positive part of her personality? I'm trying to understand.
No, there was never anything sincere about her because I've since learned, investigating hundreds and hundreds of other con artist cases over the past 8 years, and that's how I figured out what the 14 red flags of every scammer is, and that's why I wrote the book. Most con artists, 90-something% of them, are what the FBI refers to as psychopaths. Marianne Smyth is a psychopath. Marianne Smyth is not a regular human as we understand humans to be. She is devoid of any kind of empathy or actual caring or feeling for anyone. But you don't know it when you're around her because she's fun and she's charismatic and she seems to care and she seems to have answers to all your problems. But that's all fake. Those are all just, tools she uses to trick you and trick everybody out of untold fortunes. She's a psychopath. So you don't know it when you're with her. It's only when I remember when I confronted her, I realized she'd lied to me to get the money. I didn't know she was a con artist. I just thought she scammed me. I didn't know I would go on to find 50 other victims all over the world who she scammed with other incredible tales, including a bunch of people in Northern Ireland. At the time I confronted her, I just thought she scammed me. And immediately I said, you've been lying to us this whole time. You stole all this money. Oh, no, that's not true, Jonathan. That's not true. That's not true. And then she just had a glassy look. And then she just walked away and I never talked to her again. And this was back in 2017 when I confronted her in March of 2017. So it's only looking back, analyzing everything, I realize, oh, she's a psychopath. Because here's what differentiates psychopaths vis-a-vis con artists from regular criminals, right? You think of the mob, you think of organized crime. Even the head of the mob or an organized crime family, they love their mother. They love their children. They have relationships and people they care about and will move heaven and earth to help. A con artist is a psychopath. They don't love anybody. Marianne Smyth scammed her family. She scammed her own daughter. She scammed her cousins. She scammed her brothers and sisters. She's been a lying, cheating person since she was a child. I talked to her high school boyfriend who told me one of the scams she ran as a teenager, she would date older guys, like college guys. Then she'd pretend to get pregnant and she'd tell them all she needs an abortion. She needs abortion money. And, these are a dozen different guys and they all gave her abortion money, no questions asked. But she was never pregnant. That was a scam. She's always scamming. So no, she doesn't care about anyone. Nothing is sincere, but she is a brilliant actress. During the throes of my con, of her con of me, she painted this picture that her family in Ireland, these noble people, the founders of Ireland. She had a framed copy of the Irish Constitution on her living room wall that she would refer to frequently and say that her great-great-grandfather was a signatory. Some people, she said it was her great-great-uncle. And, that sold the story. And when they were trying, the other part of the con, her family was disowning her because of this 25 million euro inheritance. And she would show me text messages from her cousin Fintan and Dermot and Tristan in Ireland, which is part of the red flag I write about in the book, the red flag of technology. Con artists use digital screens to sell you their stories. So all these text messages she's showing me from Tristan and Fintan and Dermot and the barristers in Ireland about the inheritance, they were all Google accounts she created to text herself and then show me those texts to sell her story. But I want to point out, she would break down crying. She would be crying. I would be consoling her and rocking her and saying it's going to be okay. Her tears wet my shirt. I could feel the dampness of her tears. They were real. But none of what she was crying about was real. Those cousins didn't exist. Those barristers didn't exist. And yet, there was no way you could have told me that all of that was fake because I was holding her. She was crying on my shoulder, literally crying. So she's such a good actress. So she can sell you these emotions, but they're not real. She's just an actress. She's just a con artist.
What is the specific scam that she hooked you with?
So I want to punch myself in the face when I say this out loud, but it's true. I was helping an Irish heiress get her inheritance. That was the scam. And it's a lot more complicated and nuanced than that. And it takes place over the course of 4 years. And she got me for close to $100,000 by the time all was said and done. And people tell me all the time, well, $100,000 over 4 years, that's not a lot of money, Jonathan. And I reply, well, while she was scamming me, she was scamming dozens of other people with dozens of other crazy stories that were, bringing in the money at the same time, because this is what con artists do, right? And I've investigated, again, hundreds of cases, and I've come to this conclusion. The con is not always about the money. The con first primarily is about the con. A true dyed-in-the-wool con artist, they get a thrill. They get a godlike sense of joy from creating worlds that do not exist and watching their victims say what they plan for them to say and do what they plan for them to do. It's almost as if they're shooting a movie. They're directing a movie that they haven't told anyone about, and we're all actors, us victims, unwitting actors in their movie, and they just enjoy watching. Let me blow your mind. Marianne Smyth, on occasion, more than one occasion, would have these cocktail parties where she would invite a dozen or so people she's scamming with different stories. And looking back, because I've interviewed these people, some of them are in my podcast, Queen of the Con. I write about them in my book, Anatomy of a Con Artist. She told us different stories. So at any point, one of us could have accidentally said, mentioned the story Mir told us, and, did she tell you that, or compare, and her con would be up. But we never did, because when you have a bunch of strangers, and this is, Marianne Smyth has a PhD in psychology, I swear to God. When you have a bunch of strangers meeting for the first time, they're only ever going to make polite conversation. We never brought up inheritance or this, or Marianne Smyth was masquerading also while she was conning me. She was working as a psychologist. She had a fake psychology degree that she had a dozen clients, patients in Los Angeles that she's treating, and she's scamming them. And she's using the intimate details of their lives to get their money and scam them. I couldn't convince any of them to go to police. But this is while she's an Irish heiress for my scam. So she's so brilliant at having all these plates and spinning in the air. And I fell for it. Everyone fell for it. But, before I interacted with these kinds of people, I just didn't know they exist. I always thought a con artist is someone out there. That's the big misconception we are all living under. Ask anyone who donated money to that guy in Ireland you told me about. No, a con artist is someone who's probably in your life right now. You just don't know they're a con artist because they have not scammed you yet. And the people they are scamming, no one's talking about it. Everyone's ashamed. Everyone keeps it quiet. And the con artist lives to scam another day.